Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a fantastic program. The energy and the dynamic on set is fantastic right now. You have three people that absolutely love Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia on set. Nelson County as well. We'll give Nelson some props on the program. It's the I Love CVille Show, guys. Sena Magill in the house. Sena Magill. She got the W in the Democratic primary. She is on to the general election. We will spotlight her campaign, her platform, her strategy the next 5 months. She is a busy woman. And we're excited for her second rodeo on the I Love CVille Show. We also have Sean Tubbs in the house. Sean Tubbs, I'm going to straight up say this. He's not going to like this. I love his byline. I love his content. Oftentimes, the first byline I would pursue. I miss Sean Tubbs at Charlottesville tomorrow. I'm going to catch some heat for this. I don't think anyone has filled the Sean Tubbs niche yet at Charlottesville tomorrow because this guy was a straight-up workaholic and had so much fun at meetings, covering development, covering land use, covering local politics. I miss him. We will get to Sean Tubbs and Sena Magill in 15 seconds. Before we do, we'll thank the people that make the show possible. Intrastate Pest and Service Companies, guys. We are their proud ad agency of record since 1969. This family-owned business has proudly served Charlottesville, Central Virginia, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. A 4-generation strong business started with Mr. Wells, the first generation in 1969. He would go to one house, service them successfully, and then find the nearest payphone, call from a payphone, and then go to the second home after talking to them on the payphone. Today, 4 generations strong and almost 100 employees, Intrastate Pest and Service Company. Our good friend, Dr. Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. We're his ad agency of record. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner's got your back through sports medicine, physical therapy, and chiropractic care. Al Schornberg is watching at Keswick Vineyards. He's the CEO and owner. Richard Allen Fox, who ran for politics in the Commonwealth. He's watching right now. Roslyn Farm. Richard Fox, we love you on this program. Neil Williamson on the line. We got Dave Norris watching right now. We have a number of folks watching at City Hall. Let's go to the studio cam. Let's welcome Sean and Sena. They make the show better. First, thank you guys for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I don't know what possessed you to do that.
Well, you're
an
extremely smart man, and I want to tap into that IQ, Sean Tubbs.
Brains.
Before we do ladies first, Sena Magill, congratulations.
Who's actually done something.
Oh, stop. Please don't do that. You've done a lot of stuff here. Sena Magill, talk about the Democratic primary, talk about your victory, talk about what went through your mind.
It took me a little while to believe it, because we were waiting quite a while on data coming in from the Walker precinct in particular, and then the absentee. And so I had a cake made at Breadworks, and one half said, "Congratulations, we did it," and the other half, you flipped it over, said, "We gave it our best shot."
Wow.
And so I sat there trying to figure. It was 10 o'clock, and we were.
Where were you guys?
We were at Bluegrass Grill.
Okay.
Bluegrass Grill.
Chrissy's watching now.
Mm-hmm. And she had let us utilize the space. Chrissy and I have known each other a very long time.
She's awesome.
Very. We used to be housemates.
Really?
Yes, and we are still friends.
That's awesome. That's hard to do.
Yes. We were housemates for 4 years, I think.
Okay.
And still friends. So she let me use that space. And we were sitting here debating what to do with the cake as we were waiting. And so I decided to go ahead and cut through the congratulations we did it part, because I'm Murphy's Law. And just as I'm getting ready to start cutting it, someone's like, "Stop, wait. The absentee ballots numbers are coming in." So we looked, and then I was like, "Are you sure? Are you really sure? Is there anything else that could stop this?" So, and it was kind of bittersweet because you get to know, as you're doing the campaigning, you get to know your opponents.
Right.
And
Pinkston's a stand-up dude.
Brian Pinkston is a lovely human being who I have worked with on the Region 10 board and he's the Walker chair for the Democratic Committee. I'm the Carver co-chair. And, I've worked with him for about 1.5 to 2 years now, off and on in various projects. And he is a wonderful human being. Bob Fenwick is also a very good, lovely human being. And, so there's that bittersweet. Yes, I won, but it was also 2 people who I lost. So, and I said from day one that I really felt that everyone who was running really was in it for the right reasons. and that everyone just wanted to do something good for Charlottesville, whether or not I necessarily always agreed with each person's path to doing that. I really felt as a city we were quite lucky to have the people stepping forward who want to do this.
Great answer. One more follow-up on this, and then that's the first sizzle reel. She's on fire. I'm going to eat some crow, and I'm going to, I straight up thought because of Pinkston's late momentum and the fundraising barometer, I was basing my predictions on this show on a couple of things. Fundraising, doors knocked. One thing I underestimated was, the institutional nature of your brand. You are a lifer in this community and in Central Virginia. People love some Sena Magill. I also underestimated you're a cool lady. You're just a likable person. I think Brian is also likable. I think if you went into a room, any room, you're gonna get the room to like you. I think Brian has those tendencies, but might have to work a little bit harder than you because you're just a cool customer. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm eating some crow right there. Talk about the energy in the room when you guys got that W. I mean, was everyone like, yeah, Sena? What was happening?
Yeah, no, that was, there was a lot of cheering and a lot of people saying, "You don't believe it yet, do you?" And I'm like, because I was cleaning up. I just kept cleaning up from using the bluegrass, and all I could fixate on is they're short-staffed right now. I got to make sure we leave this in good shape.
So that was your stress reliever?
I was sitting there washing dishes, making sure everything was taken care of, and making sure people were I was like, stop eating the cake without a plate, because we got to vacuum that up. I'm not leaving this mess for them to clean up in the morning.
I love it. I love it.
So, and then later on, I went by and visited my brother and over at Lampo, and the crew over there, because they were very supportive. And,
I didn't know he worked there.
He's one of the owners.
Get out of town.
Lauren Mendoza is my little brother.
No way. Lauren is the freaking man.
Yes, he is.
Did you know that?
He's the freaking man? That's like a superhero?
No, I mean, Lauren is just another cool dude.
No, he's my baby brother.
Okay.
He's 12 years younger.
So that was the tie with Lampo and the fundraiser. Mm-hmm. Was it in early May that you guys were doing? It was
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo.
We called it Sena de Mayo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. They're a great group of guys over there.
Yeah.
And they do their homework before opening a restaurant. They brought together a bunch of talent from different parts and have utilized it very well. And as a big sister, I can't be more proud of him.
Yeah. And Prime 109. Mm-hmm. Mitchell Behrens and I worked together in 2000 at Ruby Tuesdays, my first year in Charlottesville. Mitchell's a great dude. That's a great team.
Is. No, everyone. I love all of them. They're amazing guys and ladies. And
when you go to
they
Lampo,
treat their employees right as well.
Did you have a couple beverages to celebrate?
No, actually, they offered me one. I don't drink much, and alcohol actually makes me kind of ill. I'm allergic to a lot of things, including probably oak. And so there's a lot of, anyways, yes. It's just better if I didn't, because I also have a very low tolerance.
Okay.
And at that point, I was running on probably close to
sleep?
29 hours of not having slept.
Right.
Because I'd gotten to sleep at 2 the night before and then gotten up at 4. So I'd gotten 2 hours of sleep the night before, and at that point, if I had had anything to drink,
You would have been hammering?
Yes, and I really don't know if I could have gotten home. I slept the entire day the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, my child was home. Luckily, she is 11, so she can and she actually brought me lunch in bed.
What was the indulgence?
The indulgence.
For the celebration. Did you have something that was like, damn it, I got this W. I'm going to do this that I don't normally do?
I giggled.
You giggled.
I giggled. It was kind of, it's very hard for me, one, because I feel, yes, there's an elation and a thank you to everyone for feeling like I can do this. It's also, it's a really tough job.
Yeah.
And it's also not over with yet.
No.
And I kept saying that. It's like, one, even once it became clear that I had one, this is still just stage one. There's a very...
Put it in perspective. I love that.
There's still a big race. There's 3 running on the Democratic ticket. Paul Long has run a number of times. He brings some really good ideas. Bellamy Brown, who I'm meeting with hopefully in the next week or so to talk and to understand what his platform is and where he's coming from. He's a very strong contender.
He is. Look at that.
And
Bellamy Brown watching right now.
yeah.
Bellamy Brown, you want to say something to Bellamy?
Yeah. Thanks for watching. I'm glad, I'm looking forward to having coffee and, getting to know you better. That's a part of what this whole process is community building as well. And that, hopefully, even those who do not win in the various elections will continue to be involved because they've spent a lot of time learning what's going on in this town and have become, generalists and even to some extent experts in various areas.
Right.
And we need more of that civic engagement all
100%.
across the board.
100%. That's a sizzle reel. That was amazing.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
I do better when I'm not running 101 temperature.
The first time she came on the show, she was sick as a dog, okay? So sick, but she still made it through with 101 degree temperature and did really well on the show. I can already tell on this version of the show, this second rodeo, you're even better right now. We're going to get Sean Tubbs in the mix. Janet Driscoll Miller is watching. She says, you're right, she is a super cool lady.
She's my daughter's Girl Scout troop leader.
She's giving you some props right now.
She's awesome.
Charlotte Renee Woods is watching at Charlottesville tomorrow. Charlotte Woods, you're welcome on this program anytime you want.
You can take over for me right now if you like.
We're about to get Sean Tubbs in the mix.
Yeah.
Let's thank Connie Rosenbaum for watching. Samantha Signorelli.
Yep.
Tim Beansprout, love that last name.
Sam is actually working as an intern on the Mark Warner campaign.
Wow, get it, Sam. Nancy Dodge. Chrissy says, what up?
Aww.
All right, Sean Tubbs, I want to get you in the mix here.
Okay.
You
No,
are...
it's okay. I can just sit back and report. I'm taking notes.
You are as much Charlottesville as anybody in this community. Nah. You know Charlottesville inside and out. You probably got some secrets.
No. That's Terry Allard.
You got some secrets in Charlottesville that probably a lot of people don't.
I know
from,
secrets.
From your time covering the beat,
Not
many
really
beats.
Not really secrets.
I got to ask you this question about Sena.
Stuff.
Talk to us about the Democratic primary. Talk to us about Sena Magill.
This is going to tell you a terrible confession, but I have barely paid attention to this Democratic primary. This is the first one I haven't covered. This is the first election I hasn't covered. I've transitioned into a new role.
Piedmont Environmental Council?
Piedmont Environmental Council,
Yeah.
which is where I'm happily employed at the moment, doing some really interesting things. But it's been interesting being on the sidelines for the first time. Before we used to cover every single one of these things.
You did a great job.
And there was a lot of work that went into that. And but I did go through the notes. I did the same thing I did every election night, which was to hit F5 on the State Board of Elections page to see it coming through. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun.
Is that what you were doing? Yeah.
Somebody else was doing that for me.
Yeah, but it
My
was
husband
interesting.
was.
But it was interesting to watch that race and to watch all the other races across the state. Looking at Albemarle, there was only one contested race at the Board of Supervisors level.
Gerard Smith.
At this point.
Yeah.
And B. Lepisto Kirtley.
She got the W by a very tight margin.
Yeah, which was really interesting.
Rivanna District.
In a race that really didn't get a lot of attention.
No attention.
I think now looking at the general election, what happens next at the supervisors level, as well as the council. There's lots going on.
Hello, Bellamy Brown. Hello, Barbara Lundgren. Hello, Allie Snyder. Give it a like, give it a share. Let me throw this to you, and then let's just have a discussion with no rules. She is like, she knows Charlottesville and Central Virginia inside and out. He certainly does too. I want to just kind of like spitball. It's like three people at a watering hole talking about the community we love with you guys being a fly on the wall. This is the question I'm going to have for you. Bellamy Brown, who's watching right now, and running as an independent, to use your phrase, he is, I think you said this, a force to possibly be reckoned with here. Mayor Walker won as an independent. Before that, it's been 70 years since an independent's gotten a W in Charlottesville city limits. Throw that topic to you as far as how politics are changing perhaps in our community.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Yes, you're correct. Back in 1948, don't remember the gentleman's name, but I did, because before the election of 2017, there was always this truism that you had to be a Democrat, at least especially since post-Ardent Howe back in the late 90s, that you had to be a Democrat to get the general election win. Nikiah Walker certainly overcame that barrier because lots of things going on. But let's look at the 1950 election. On the same ticket that the gentleman who won in 1948, the independent candidate, here's a name, Francis Fife, ran on that same party and didn't win. So the real question is going to be this year is that can Bellamy Brown or Paul Long break through and
I'm not sure Paul Long
and
wants
get
to
there.
get the W.
Does
Do Hall and Long want to get the W, or are Hall and Long doing this?
Didn't Hall drop out?
Did Hall drop out? I don't think he's dropped out yet. I think they're doing it to get
I
a
honestly
message
don't
out
know.
there,
Yeah.
like the transit message out there. I think Bellamy's in this to get a W. So I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, gosh, you didn't. There's no rules, Jerry.
Right.
Yeah, there
There's
are
no
rules.
rules.
So I can interrupt.
You can't interrupt.
Yeah, no,
I don't
it's
like
okay.
to interrupt.
We should have buzzers. Can we get buzzers?
We can get buzzers.
I'm the
Yoda
person
Smith.
who goes to the
That'll
toilet at
electrocute
Toys R
us.
Us and hits all the buttons,
what
and
I
then goes
do
back
too.
and puts them all again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think, but it's going to be interesting. Now, I'm watching, obviously, in my role, which really isn't different from being a reporter. I have to work, or I will work with everybody who is elected, because obviously we do elect people who make decisions at this level. My hope is that for anybody who wins at the council level is to help to draw attention to the regional picture and the need to really think of Charlottesville as the center of a region that is growing. The entire region is growing, not just the city. Albemarle, of course, works very closely. There's lots of, the stuff I know are all the nuts and bolts of these various mechanisms. So if you want to fix transit, you got to look past 10.4 square miles. To add to the affordable housing question, you have to be looking everywhere and making sure that the transportation is there for it in the first place. And my job is to convince people now and persuade people to take certain positions and to grow with them and hopefully to find common ground to get us moving forward.
I can't wait to pick his brain on transit. I'm going to get you involved here. Janice
Scalpels?
Neal.
I want to pick his brain on transit.
Hey!
I mean,
Janice Neal's watching.
Yeah, from England.
Yeah, Janice Neal watching from England. We
From
have someone
Tring.
watching in Charleston right now. Judy McCarthy Harmon puts, oh, you're right. Judy McCarthy Harmon is totally right. So props to Sean
Oh, what'd I
Tubbs.
do?
John Hall withdrawing from City Council. Thank you, Judy McCarthy, right there.
Okay.
Daniel Sims, welcome to the program. Transit. Let's
look
talk
at
about
that.
transit. He loves transit.
you know, Paul Long is an expert on transit.
jeepers.
Usually,
Sorry.
what are you doing?
He is an expert on transit.
I hit the button.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Buzzer. There's no rules.
There are no
rules.
Dun-dun-dun-dun,
Ah, that's me. I
sabotage.
can't look at myself. Get off of that.
Paul Long is an expert on transit, and it was a 94.7 interview that I did, and I sat there and I read the letter that Paul Long sent out because that's what we need to do.
Well, I
It
didn't
was
read it.
so he brought up facts like we need to do the transit authority, the regional transit authority. We need to increase our bus routes. We need to have more bus shelters. We need to make transit, basically it was all these things that we need to do to make transit usable to everyone instead of the
Resort.
transportation of last resort.
Yeah.
Because the more that becomes utilized, one, it's better for our environment, it's better for people's economy. But one of the things we have to admit is that transit is never going to make money. It will be a public service, and it will cost the city and the various counties money as well. And we just have to kind of admit that this is going to happen, and I feel like we have to back it.
What do you think, Sean?
Well, I think that the question is how. And the question is, and again, my job in an education role is to point out what's happening at the policy level, what's happening with the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, what is the funding mechanism, what's the status of the transit development plan, the things that many people would say are boring, but yet they're not.
Yeah,
Going back to the authority, 10 years ago, there was an attempt to create an authority here. We don't need to get into all the reasons why it didn't happen, but it really boiled down to the General Assembly not giving sales tax authority that would have just given the citizens of the two communities, Albemarle and Charlottesville, the ability to vote on a sales tax increase to pay for the increased structure. So that kind of got bogged down. It kind of went away, but Albemarle County has really been pushing for this regional transit partnership, which now, stick with me in policy world here, which isn't scary, I swear.
It's not.
How does that work? What's the mechanisms by that works? You mentioned ridership a moment ago. So the state is switching over to a policy where funding is going to be more tied to ridership. Transit agencies that have to report to the Department of Transportation have to report things in a certain way. but they're moving to a strategic plan basis thing, which basically means that the more ridership you can get, the more funding you can get. So it will be performance based. So it's very important to get this right. It's important, I think, for the many regions, for the agencies to work together. We have 3 in this community. We have JAUNT, we have CTS, that takes me back, Charlottesville Area Transit, and we have UTS. And my job is to, anybody who ever wants to ask, I can tell you all the details. But also, too, you're correct, but also there's going to be sort of a chicken and an egg situation. We have the system we have. So what I've been doing for the past 3 months is I live 1.5 miles away from work.
You've been riding the bus.
I ride it every day.
On Twitter.
Well, yeah, because it's
it's awesome,
which has really connected me to this community in a way. I'm seeing the world from a different perspective. It's a little slower. My commute, the whole basic idea is to, because my concern is if you put the enhanced service and tripled your budgets right now, let's just say magically that could happen, you're still not going to get people there. But also, too, let's never lose sight of the fact that this is a system that does serve people who cannot afford any other means, and that must come first, and we cannot change that. So I'm not calling for any radical changes, incremental changes that can work, additional funding. There's a lot of development underway in Albemarle County at the moment, making sure that Albemarle, which has increased its funding quite dramatically over the last few years for the bus system, gets some sort of say in how that works. How that all works out, to be honest, it's going to be the next set of leaders who get elected who will make those decisions. So the more I can help educate you and everybody about here's how it could work to present a vision, that's my job.
So, can we sit down and make an appointment after this?
Sounds like a coffee.
No, I am at the point where I am now that it's summer, and actually things do not slow down in the summer. They just don't. Things do not slow down in local government. Yes, of course. I will be reaching out to all the candidates to see, but also to talk about other issues that PEC is working on. I should give a shout out to my colleague Peter Krebs.
Yeah, he's great.
Who is working on the trail work. I'm hoping he can be a guest on your very fine show here in the near future.
Happy to do that.
Because I think that really we are thinking in terms of how do we build a community that is where it is possible to get around without a car.
I want to throw this to Sena.
Please do.
And we're getting some props. Janice says, and Tring got a mention. Tring from England. You're getting some props over here. In fact, Dave Norris has got a correction for us. Hall did withdraw, but then he withdrew his withdrawal and is now on the ballot again in November. So Hall's still in the race. Sally Martin says, go Sena, go. When you were door knocking and you were getting to know people, potential voters, where in the pecking order of priorities did transportation kind of rank? What was the top 3 to 5 priorities you were hearing?
Transportation, when I was door knocking, didn't come up as often.
Okay.
It was very much it very much depended on what community I was in.
Okay.
And whether or not people were utilizing transportation more or not.
So you're basically saying maybe North Downtown versus Fifeville.
Or Greenbrier versus 10th and Page.
10th and Page. Understood.
Or it just depended. Depending on what areas. Belmont is very concerned about parking right now.
He doesn't want the computer on. Chantal's making jokes over
here. Let's see, who else? And depending on the areas as to whether or not the people who live in the areas have more cars or not, depending on what people were worried about. So there was definitely a lot of concern over bikeability and walkability. That is becoming much more of a concern, which I applaud. And I love the work that Peter's doing and really trying to encourage more and more people. There's going to be a solstice bike ride coming up.
Tomorrow night, I think?
The 21st. Is that tomorrow night?
I believe so.
Okay. I've lost track of days at this point. I think it starts at the bridge, PIA, and goes kind of throughout Belmont.
It seems to me, and I'm going to throw it back to you. It seems to me, and welcome Aaron Richardson, one of the editors at the Daily Progress, watching the show right now, formerly your colleague.
Charlottesville tomorrow. I don't know him.
Aaron Richardson, hello. Sean Tubb says hello.
Gary.
This is what I'm going to throw to you. I would think that if the public transportation system was more robust, approachable, affordable, and accessible, then we could have our most impoverished citizens having more income in their pockets. And there's a direct correlation between public transportation affordability and accessibility and reliability and affordable housing.
Yeah.
Right now, and I'm going to get out of the way, I'm going to throw it to you, Sean, jump in the mix. Right now, if you're going to Fluvanna or Louisa or Orange because you're trying to save the money on rent and housing, you're then losing it on the back end with the wear and tear on the vehicle and fuel and transportation costs as you go to the epicenter of employment, which is the city of Charlottesville. Right.
Yeah.
So you know firsthand. So if we get transportation working a little bit better in Charlottesville, that's going to help affordable housing big time. I mean, just throw that to you anywhere you want to go.
I mean, I 100% agree. And it's not just, I mean, it is, first step is making it usable for people who don't have a choice. But then we also need to be making it usable across the board because as our environmental pressures increase, cars are going to become more expensive. Fuel is going to become more expensive. We need to be putting these in place. I mean, Meredith Richards years ago was bringing up light rail and the need for these. And I really wish we'd listened to her more on that. She was a very forward thinker in these kinds of
Huge
things.
train advocate.
Well,
Yeah.
she almost single-handedly secured the trains. I mean, she was very first time I ever met. Actually, that's not true. The second time I met, I can't say. Sometimes I have a
Meredith?
problem saying words that begin with M.
Okay, Meredith.
Meredith Richardson.
Yes.
There you go. No, it's an inside joke to people who aren't watching. She was instrumental in that, and I think, and is still at it. So it's good to have ideas and be able to. But again, it gets back to the idea: having an idea and being able to see it through. It doesn't happen
Execute.
overnight,
No.
and you need to know the policy or have some command of how to get the policies in place, and work with people to get them to work.
How did you see, that's a good end of the second sizzle reel with public transportation right there. How did you see the various precincts respond to your campaign? Which ones do you think responded the best? And you know this data. Welcome Amy Rose Miller from Richmond watching now. And which ones do you feel like you need to get more traction within?
I actually don't know this data.
Yeah?
I haven't looked at it.
Okay. How about from a hunch standpoint?
The thing, again, growing up here and having worked throughout various different jobs in the city, I've interacted with people in all different neighborhoods. And so I feel it's kind of, I guess Walker being the biggest precinct in general, and maybe the North Downtown Key
Walker
Rec
went
precinct.
to Snook, right? Walker and alumni went to Snook.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And probably the alumni precinct. When I was out there, when I was out there visiting the polls, I only came across one person I knew at the Alumni Hall precinct versus when I was at the various other precincts, usually about every other person coming up I happen to know in one form or another. Whether they voted for me or not, it's a whole different story, but at least we knew each other already. So probably Alumni Hall area.
Yeah.
Possibly Venable because that's a very different neighborhood association with majority being students. And I went to UVA, but at the same time, it's been a number of years. So I'm not necessarily
Top of mind, perhaps?
as involved. And I was a transfer student, so I was 27 when I went to
Where'd you
UVA.
transfer from?
Piedmont.
Yeah?
Yeah, I
Nice.
did Piedmont for 9 years, 2 classes a semester, as I could afford it, and my mom helped me out where she could, and I worked at Giant, and let's see, where else did I worked all sorts of places. I waited tables, Office Depot many years ago, but so that's my answer to that. I'm not 100% sure, but I would say that probably alumni is probably one of the places I need to strengthen.
Okay.
And Walker being one of the biggest precincts in North Downtown area, being one of the biggest precincts, obviously those would be good to keep strengthening.
I'm going to throw this to you, and we have a message here from Neil, who's watching Williamson.
Still
then I'm
no
going to get out of the
seats
way.
available.
He says, I will, Neil says this, from the CAT MPO report, Total ridership decreased by 5.35%, comparing December 18 to December 17, even with Sean Tubbs on the bus.
Well, no, actually, I don't believe that I haven't actually, the report he's referring to is probably from the packet from next week's MPO meeting, which I haven't had a chance to get through yet. Ridership is declining. Gas prices, but there is a question.
Gas prices are down.
But there's a question from some is everybody being counted? It is a known fact that Kat knows about that many of the buses, sometimes the fare box doesn't work. There's questions about did the route changes in 2013, which eliminated a lot of transfers by creating a lot more direct routes, is it possible that people are just are not transferring as much? It used to be that those transfers would be counted as two separate rides. So that there's a lot of factors that go into it, but clearly transit ridership isn't where it could be. It is something that I can speak from experience, if you're what is known as a choice rider, in other words, I could choose to drive to 1.5 miles every day.
You're not going to ride the public transportation if you're a choice rider.
Well, you either learn the system or you don't. And I think that part of, for me, and I'll just say, again, I can only speak to my own perspective from that. I feel like I live in a city when I ride the bus. Tomorrow, I'm taking it up into Albemarle County. I'm meeting a friend up there at Northside Library in the afternoon. I'm taking the bus because I can. Now, it isn't as fast as driving, but I'm trying to think, can I get rid of my car? Do I need it? I haven't driven since Sunday. And I did that to go to go do a big grocery shop. During the week, I have a system down. Now that's just me, and I'm I'm a single person. I have different considerations, but I'm enjoying it.
You also have a lot of skin in the game here.
Well, also, we referred to the person from England, Tring. I go to England a lot. When I go to England, I have cousins who live in one village, and I have another, my son, who lives in Tring. I take the bus. Every time I get there, I know the bus schedule's there. I kind of want that here. To get to your earlier point about places in Louisa, places in Orange, I would love to see the robust network, and I am trying to figure out how to use Jaunt. One of the things I hope to do this summer is to use Jaunt's existing commuter routes, which are out there, working. I think they would be Jaunt would be a fantastic guest to have on this program in the future. But that's why we need the coordination. We need to get away from thinking that these three systems are competing with each other, and that instead they're working for the common purpose of assisting people who want to and choose to, and also can make other choices in their life. It's important to think of housing and transportation in the same metrics. There's a metric called the H+T index, which I think the Center for Neighborhood something. Well, we can look it up. Looking at things from that metric is important, but the systems have to be in place so it's a reliable ride. Or there's a system in place where you have a combination of fixed route and on-demand services such as Jaunt owns, such as connecting to Lyft or Uber and other things, making the system work. I'm at the point where I have to get 4 new tires for my car. It's going to cost me $600. I don't want to pay that. But then I have a relatively good wage. If you think about other people who then could maybe choose, America has been a place where you have to have a car. It's almost a status symbol in some ways. Maybe there's a choice to not do that. And I think that we have set ourselves up in this community to be ready for that should we get more people into the game to make it happen. And I think we'll have a better place.
Take that start to finish as a sizzle reel here. You're getting some props, and some questions are coming in here. You're both getting some props here. Sena, you're getting props from a lot of people right now. Isabel Deuce says hello.
Hi.
Daniel Zabrano says hello. Julie Ann says hello.
Duce.
Duce, sorry. Jamie Graham says hello. Catherine Louise Gray, giving you some props right now. Ray Cadell's giving you some love. Sean Tubbs, I'll read it very quickly. For a lot of years when I've had a question about all kinds of things, Greater Charlottesville, Sean has been my go-to guy. He always has the answer of a learned opinion and has always responded very quickly. He's a community resource gem. Andre Xavier from CVille Hop On Tours is watching. Corey Fanning is watching. Mike Shaver's watching in upstate New York, as is Ike Allen.
To go back to Ray for a second, Ray, if you are listening, I do need to get in touch with you about an issue we've worked on in the past, and I hope we can talk.
Okay, there you
You'll
go.
know what I'm talking about.
Anja Ondelik from Fig Bistro is watching. Let me throw this to you. This is a question that's coming in on the DMs right now. Jerry, you got to get
Danger Mouse?
Direct message, actually.
Oh, okay.
That's what the kids
I
are
love
saying
Danger
these
Mouse.
days. The DM is saying you got to get Sena's take on what John Dewberry is trying to do with the Dewberry Hotel, now trying to rebrand as the Larimore. Sena Magill, if you were elected, what would you do with John Dewberry? Good question, right?
Okay, well, first we have to take back. I was actually just talking to somebody earlier today about this whole issue about
Was
the
that Millie
Dewberry
Jo's?
Hotel. Yes.
Was it Millie Jo's? Okay.
It was.
I saw her this morning at Millie Jo's.
First, you have to realize. First, we have not heard anything from Dewberry.
Right.
As regards to this. This could simply have been a publicity thing that he is doing with his own people, moving that from one part of a website to another part of the website. So we don't know if he has any intention of actually that happening. There's a lot of assumptions going on simply by a name change on a website. So we need to step back from that for a minute and make sure, once we hear from them, that is something he wants to address. I've been trying to get a handle on the construction issues of what could actually be done with that structure at the point of construction it currently is under, and what is allowable as far as zoning goes, as far as height requirements within the rooms themselves, the plumbing parts that are within the rooms themselves, the kind of concrete it's made out of. And this all really restricts what can be done with the structure. The Dewberry Hotel, or this new incarnation,
The Larimore.
Right. There is nothing right now that is very happy about this whole situation. It's been 14 years since Halsey Minor started this whole thing. I had friends who worked at Boxer Learning back then before it was taken over, and things were promised. Company went bankrupt, couldn't follow through with the promises. Another company has purchased it. They
At
sat
auction,
on it.
John Dewberry at auction.
Yes, they sat on it. I understand he's recently released the leases again on the parking. I was reading about that. There's more investigation that needs to happen into this. Also, if I got on city council, I would really want to sit with the other councilors and have a very unified approach to approaching this. That we first decide what it is amongst ourselves that we hope to see out of this process. Do we want what kind of negotiation strategies? What kind of end result are we hoping for before approaching Dewberry or responding to Dewberry's approaching us? It's too complicated for one person to have a set strategy in place to address it.
Would you, and Sean, get in the mix, turn the Dewberry into the fourth and final sizzle reel. My question to her, and keep it going here, would you, if elected to city council, take an aggressive approach? It's going to depend on who's on council with you, because you're going to have to do this as a team. Would you take an aggressive approach? How do you prioritize it? Do you consider using city funding, perhaps, to solve this problem? Maybe a private-public partnership to potentially solve this problem? We have a huge eyesore, eminent domain, blight, huge eyesore downtown. Talk to us, any of the options.
Looked into the blight eminent domain issue. I mean, even if we could pursue a blighted property and potentially win with that, we have to look at that at a minimum, I figure, and this is very rough figuring estimations, we would end up probably spending about $20 million.
Jesus. It's a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we want to spend $20 million?
Especially when things like affordable housing, the West Main streetscape, the potential need to move statues, school funding, or it could be a priority.
Tearing
Sean,
it
get
down.
you in here. Right.
That's just tearing
That's
it
not-
down.
that's
That's
not
not
building.
actually right. Then we still have a piece of property that's only worth about $6 million that has been spent $20 million on. That's not good business. That's not good fiscal responsibility with our city's funds. Now, again, a city has other things besides fiscal responsibility that we have to be aware of. We have a social responsibility as well. So the social responsibility is...
You're handling this well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you really are. That's a good answer.
So we look at both our social and fiscal, and how do we make sure that they are both being represented equally, and where our priority is. And that is, again, that is a group effort of council. So yes, I would be up for an aggressive approach on this, because I want to be a good partner with good developers. I don't want to be a victim of predatory development. Not saying that's what Dewberry is doing. I am saying
I think that is what he's doing.
that is your opinion.
Yeah, right.
I am not gonna.
Right.
I need more information to definitely end. But I do want to make sure that we are cautious with our city. We've given properties away before. We've done other things before in hopes of increasing development that have kind of backfired on us. And some have been good. So it's a combination of we need to really sit down and work together again before approaching Dewberry. And also, will Dewberry even talk to us? He might not. And if that's a whole separate, then do we keep leaving it and just keep getting the money that we currently get
It's like
from the
about
property tax?
$65,000 a year in
Right.
property tax.
Do we then put other types of pressure? Do we look at having a tax that we go to the General Assembly on for blighted buildings that are not being developed in a commercial sense? Do we look at other ways that we can put a social and or economic pressure on that building and others to make sure that they are not just sitting there and pulling down the property values around them?
What do you think, Sean Tubbs? That was well done.
I think it would make the great base of a space elevator. And if we could just get some sort of a funding mechanism, I mean, we could launch an entire industry.
Talk to Elon
here.
Musk.
Yeah, let's get Elon Musk in Charlottesville.
on here. But
Realistically.
realistically, I would say, go back in recent history, and for me, I'm a very cautious person. The reason I liked being a reporter is because I just got to write things out. So saying things is a little different. But I would say that there is a history that goes back with this project. There is a situation that needs to be fixed at some point. How do we get to a solution? As a city resident, I just hope we can get to a solution, and that this doesn't continue to be something where it's a problem that is easy to point to and say, I know the solution. I like the approach of figuring out a way to collaborate, to work. There are solutions, some of them, but not everybody's going to be happy with them. But I think being able to, but no matter what council decides to do, as long as it's explained to people in a way they can understand. And so, for instance, and keep in mind, I've been off the
beat. We understand.
I couldn't come up with a joke. There's no rules. I don't have to have a punchline. But I was going to say,
Just
though,
be punchy.
but I would say that no matter what happens, I think so. For instance, as I understand, it might have broken down the last time. It was the idea of using some sort of tax increment financing. I'm not a finance guy. I need to. My colleague Rex Linville at the Piedmont Environmental Council, another plug for him, is a finance guy. He might be in a position to talk about some of the mechanisms. But I think those mechanisms, maybe they're not the way they were described potentially, and maybe if the city gets, and I'm saying this from the perspective, and this might be a segue to, and also, what the heck is a sizzle reel?
Sizzle reel is a highlight clip from the show.
Oh, okay,
An
gotcha.
approachable clip from the show.
Okay, just checking, because
this show in totality, called a football game. The sizzle reel is the touchdown pass.
You definitely. So look, I'm going to turn this back to you real quick and briefly.
Absolutely.
I was
Don't
so
do
impressed when you were on 1400 AM.
Yes.
The ticket.
I used to do.
You used to do
Sports
that, and you were fantastic at it. So now the sizzle reel thing
Thank you.
makes sense.
I finished the career. This business is 11 years old, May 31st.
Ah.
Before doing that, 7 ESPN affiliates, 2 TV talk shows on NBC 29.
Yeah. But
and
I'm
a
saying,
website.
though, and that's why I'm glad to see you doing this. I think what
Thank
you're
you.
bringing to the table by doing this is a fantastic way.
It's fun.
It's providing an outlet for these conversations.
Long form journalism is important. I'm a journalist at heart, and in this setting, nothing can be taken out of context. Like oftentimes with a 10-second soundbite on the news or a quote in print, you're not getting the thing in totality. Here, you see it in totality, so people come on the show and they're more willing to be themselves.
But what about the sizzle reel?
The sizzle reel is still in totality.
Okay.
It's not a 15-second. We do the thing start to
Okay.
finish. Here's what I'm going to throw to you, and I'm going to put this out
sure.
here.
But real quick,
Yeah.
though, because I did want to,
Okay.
because I know I'm stepping on my own joke
Sure.
here. But to connect it back to something I think you're about to go to, look at other communities and how they're using some of these packages. Yesterday, Albemarle County
That's what I was gonna go to.
agreed to enter
Yes.
into a very similar looking tax mechanism for
Yes.
something we can talk about. I'll throw it back to you.
So we're going to talk about Crozet Plaza, $3.2 million to Frank Stoner's development in downtown Crozet. He purchased the old lumberyard. I'm curious if you know the price of Stoner's purchase price. I had Greg Slater on this program from Nest Realty, who knows Stoner really well. It's public record. We should figure out what Frank Stoner purchased this at. Still, one more item of business for city that I want to throw to the potential city councilor. That's a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
Potential. I mean, if I didn't think it had a nice ring, I wouldn't be doing this.
Potential city councilor. That's badass right there. This is what I'd like to throw to you. Ashton Beebe, welcome to the program. If we're in a position where affordable housing clearly is on the tip of everyone's tongues, we're in a position where a lot of our schools need more funding. We're in the position where the West Main streetscape is roughly a $31 million project. We're in a position where we need some funding for maybe transportation. We have so much need. Yeah. Here's the question I have for you is, and I had this conversation with Matthew Gillikin on Twitter, who's a very active guy, lives on Orangedale, very active guy. He's watching now. Here's the question I have for you is how, if we're using funding from the city for the Dewberry, that's going to raise, for lack of a better phrase, a shitstorm with the people that say that the funding should have gone to West Haven and the dilapidated homes that are in West Haven that we're seeing on Bellamy Brown's Facebook page here, or the schools.
No, I've got some pictures on my phone as well.
Right.
But I also know that the current CRHA staff are working very hard on a number of things over in West Haven and Crescent Hall. So that's why I haven't posted them, is because...
You're saying things are happening?
There are things happening.
Okay.
There's some, newer faces over at CH, and also CRHA. I don't want to pick on CRHA. There have been mistakes made in the past in CRHA.
They do get picked on a lot.
Their funding is they are under federal regulations in a lot of ways, and state. And when you are trying to do state, local, and federal all in the same thing, it gets much more complicated. They've been doing some really great stuff with their Section 3 program, and that takes time to make happen correctly. So I just want to make sure that we don't just throw... I want to acknowledge that CRHA is trying to do some new stuff and is really trying to address the issues, but again, the resources are limited, and they're trying to do their best. So,
back to the question, though, about how you prioritize funding in such limited funding options.
Well, when you say funding for the Dewberry, do you mean as in buying it and doing eminent domain and investing $20 million, or do you mean giving it a tax break?
Right. Well, in a lot of ways, both, though.
A tax break, however,
doesn't take money out of the coffer.
Doesn't take money out of the coffer, and if it's being under construction, we would be getting more money in
the long game.
And the tax break was only going to be for 10 years. So $100,000 over 10 years, when we were looking at getting over $1 million in revenue. That's that's 10%.
Yeah.
That's the same tax we say 10%. This tax is 10% sales tax, and that's okay.
See, if I'm on city council and we're going to go to Crozet Plaza, if I'm on city council...
Oh, no, let's stay in the city.
Crozet Plaza, we're getting people asking about Crozet Plaza.
Okay.
And you were at the meeting here.
I know nothing about Crozet Plaza, by the way.
Right. But you know Crozet.
Well, there's
of course I know Crozet. Yeah. I went to Crozet Pizza when I was a kid all the time.
I love Crozet Pizza. Here's what I'm going to throw out there.
Okay.
If I was on council, I'm going to throw this to you guys. Nathan Walton, welcome to the program. He's from the Abundant Life Ministries. I would try to do whatever humanly possible to make this a hotel, because the taxable revenue that could come from having a hotel downtown in a market category of hotels that is still underserved, it would be astronomical for the city. And having a hotel on the downtown mall, that thing would stay full all the time. Turning this into luxury apartments, that's going to further exacerbate the problem of needing affordable housing. It's going to further create a crossroads of having no affordable housing in Charlottesville. It's going to essentially be a ecosystem for the super wealthy in downtown Charlottesville, and that's it. Where the hotel, at least, is going to generate some serious revenue for everybody that could be then leveraged and allocated to other needs. Let's throw it out there. Both you guys get a final word. We'll get Sean in the mix here, and then we'll get Crozet in the mix. Your thoughts on this topic in general?
I just think in general, and actually kind of touches on both. I think that solutions can be found, but getting to those solutions is difficult. That takes understanding, both with, to your question of where the funding comes from. There are multiple sources for different kinds of funding. A lot of people who I would like to sit down and talk with think you can take money from one fund. Well, why are you spending money on this transportation project when you could move it over to this? A better public understanding of how public finances work. You mentioned when you commingle local, state, and federal funds, the reporting requirements for that go up. But there are advantages, and sometimes that would help people understand. So, for instance, why does the university have a transit system? I know I'm all over the place, but you said no rules.
Yes.
They don't participate because they don't have federal funding. Because when you do, the reporting requirements to the federal government are so much higher. But to get back to the idea of, is this a time when we switch over to?
No, you can do it anywhere you want to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say there is that. Oh God! See, that's why we need the buzzers. Really, buzzers next time.
We got the team behind Crozet Plaza watching now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think though, but it's with that. I mean, again, it's like. I think it's important to look regionally at what all the regions are doing and how they use these tools. Not just this tool, but everything. I think that public policy is fascinating, and comparative public policy is also interesting. So anybody interested in the landmark, and actually the members of the public who are skeptical about what the county is doing more and more, which is using economic development as a way to as Roger Johnson. Has Roger been on the show?
No.
Roger Johnson, County's Economic Development Director.
We should get him on.
You should get him on, definitely. Okay. So Roger Johnson, who has been in the economic development position for a year, has taken a look at the county's needs. And Albemarle County has, for many years, has designated growth areas. But the problem is raising, just like with the city sometimes, it's raising the funds to pay for the things that are public infrastructure. So yesterday, this Project Patriot that was announced, which was negotiated through the Economic Development Department, is to bring all these different pieces together. And it's really interesting to look at the performance agreement for that. That there's a great line in the staff report basically saying that there has been calls for some sort of a plaza or infrastructure to really build a downtown Crozet for years.
Neil Williamson has posted the development agreement on the feed. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, so there's lots
good.
in there.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was made
later.
available and that's the transparency that we're calling for, is to at least know what we're getting into. Because to go back to the landmark, perhaps we would be in a different situation if, when that had gone forward, there was better communication about what was actually happening in that agreement. I don't know what was before. I do know that Dewberry had come back when I was still a reporter. They had come back. They had gotten permission for another floor, and they had also come back with talk about opening up 2nd Street to maybe put some retail on there to compete with Jack Brown's, maybe, I don't know, or bring back the box. I hope someone gets that
Chaz
joke.
Webster, I missed the box.
Bring back the box.
Great case. You
miss
remember the
Atomic.
box.
Atomic
Burrito was
great.
Yeah.
But the thing about all this is that,
Chaz Webster.
but let's go back to Crozet Plaza, and let's go back to the future of our community, which could be and likely could be other places, other small towns where other businesses can set up. Places like at Crozet Plaza, perhaps up in other areas. Now, habitat was another issue that came up, and one of the best comments that was made yesterday at yesterday's Board of Supervisors was somebody in support of Habitat's performance agreement for another village type area. Somebody had said, this is regarding the residents of Southwood, I believe that part of the idea is to build retail space that'll have reduced rents for entrepreneurs to create places. And somebody had said, it's like we need more places like Chaps, local-owned businesses that build character, that start community, that are locally owned. That's how we can start building together our communities. And linking with transit. I mean, it's all connected.
And I want to get Sena in the mix. Yours would be more,
I'm a better
you're focused
writer
on
than
the city of Charlottesville, but you know Crozet well from a macro standpoint because you've been here forever. Frank Stoner here's the background. Frank Stoner's team bought the lumberyard. The lumberyard is in the heart of Crozet. Crozet is booming. There's people everywhere. The lumberyard is a key parcel for Crozet's potential growth. The concept is maybe a plaza or a downtown mall of some kind where you have restaurants, shops, and music venues to drive people to the heart of Crozet, much like the heartbeat of Charlottesville, the downtown mall. $3.2 million of public funding going to Stoner's project. The county will own a portion of this project. The common area, if you may. This project, which is part of the Crozet Master Plan, is a critical component to Crozet's long-term growth. It has been in the works for a number of years now. Perhaps we have some traction here and momentum. Maybe ground starts breaking in May of 2020. From your standpoint, you're a lifer in Central Virginia, Nelson County, know the area well. You just said you go to Crozet all the time. What do you make of that community? how you've seen it in this time. How do you see it tied to Charlottesville? How have you seen the evolution of the growth? I mean, it's freaking changed so much.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, there was Crozet pizza.
The traffic
There was
light.
Crozet pizza. There was, it's just, that's the only thing I remember that in Mint Springs as a kid. I have friends who live there now, and I've definitely watched it grow and expand over the years. I mean, again, density, one, our population is not decreasing.
Right.
Human population is not decreasing. Therefore, it's got to go someplace. And in general, human population is also migrating to more urban areas.
Amen.
Which will make areas like Charlottesville and Albemarle County in particular increase in their density.
More appealing.
Well, it's what's happening. Again, as we go back to cars becoming more expensive, everything becoming more expensive, transit in general becoming more expensive, petroleum becoming more expensive. And we're shifting. Well, the only reason petroleum is as cheap as it is because it's so massively subsidized by the federal government. And that is a whole nother issue.
That's another topic.
Let's
right.
not go there.
Yeah,
Stay
that's,
local.
as far as I'm concerned, full of corruption. But again, it's a limited resource no matter what we look at it. So it's going, as anything that's in limited resupply becomes more expensive as time goes on. Crozet is going to become more dense.
Especially
And
if they
it's going
build a
to keep
downtown mall
going
there.
that way.
But if I could just step in for a second,
I
but
don't
it's,
think that's going to cause it. I
No,
think
no.
that's as a meeting the need of it.
But it's
is
also
happening.
but it's the point of planning. That's by design. So
Right.
the point is so Albemarle, again, let's go back to that. And I believe it's important to look at the two communities and the surrounding, to look at the entire footprint of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District. But to go back to Crozet, it's planned for that. And the residents of that area get the chance to take a look back at it through the Crozet Master Plan, which is about to get under revision. Last night, the Board of Supervisors approved the Pantops Master Plan, which is a very well-written document, which I recommend to anybody who's interested. I'd love sometime to have like a weekly meeting where we can just get together and talk about some of these different plans, because there's a lot in there for people and city residents to understand. There's such a high standard of planning. We have had planning in the city of Charlottesville, and we're about to, let's not go too deep into that at the moment, but I think
Lisa Green's watching right now.
But with Crozet growth, I think that's what's happening. And I think that my work now is to try to figure out ways to make sure that people know what's in those plans, especially, and the work of Peter as well, is to make sure that as rezonings come forward, and this is already starting to happen in Albemarle, and it's actually a pretty good, again, how do we fix our policy so we can have solutions that work, and that people are building consensus for it.
I think, and we'll close on a final word here. We'll get you in the mix.
Wait, this doesn't go on all day?
We're 70 minutes in. I mean, I told
But
you it was
Lisa
going to be
Green,
easy.
the chair of the Planning Commission, just tuned in. Let's
She's
start talking more.
Literally watching right now. Lisa Green, you have an open invitation to come on this program anytime you want. I mean that, Lisa Green. We had Rory Stolzenberg on the program yesterday. He crushed it, your colleague. I'm going to throw this out there. Sena will give you a final word. You crushed it today. Throw it to you as well, Sean.
Wait, did I crush it?
You crushed it. You crushed it.
I think you crushed it.
I think I orange sliced it.
No, you knee-hide it.
Sean's got these like off-the-cuff jokes that you really got to be in tune with pop culture.
I waited
appreciate
tables
right
for
there.
years. This
So
is
did
what I did to do it.
That's how
you
I
know?
paid my way
This is-
through UVA.
Hey!
That's
Was
yeah,
waiting
exactly.
tables.
Yeah.
I waited tables at Ruby Tuesdays in Barracks Road, which is now what, Chopped, I believe. Jeff Sanders, welcome to the show. Sarah Hel Buczynski from Crozet is watching right now. This is what I'm going to throw to you. You go anywhere you want after this.
Okay.
I see what's happened in the city of Charlottesville with a lack of affordable housing, with a need for more density, with a lot of potential issues on our horizon, right on the cusp of happening in Crozet. And what I mean by that is we have so many people going to Crozet because of the schools, because of the proximity to Charlottesville, the epicenter of employment, because of the accessibility to Interstate 64 and 250 to get into town, because of a nice quality of life. That Crozet is being flooded with people right now, and people are chomping at the bit to build homes and housing and structure to accommodate the demand. If Frank Stoner's project at the lumberyard becomes a reality, it's going to create more of an appeal or an allure to go to Crozet, because one of the things people say is like, okay, you don't have the restaurants that Charlottesville has, you don't have the music venues that Charlottesville has, you don't have the shops that Charlottesville has. This Crozet Plaza will solve that problem. So I would really be mindful, if you're part of the Crozet Downtown Initiative or following the Crozet Master Plan, to take a look at what's happened to Charlottesville, because you don't want to duplicate the same mistakes that has come to Charlottesville. And really, Greene County is going to be the next Crozet in 15 to 20 years as that blows up. Have you seen what's happening from a density standpoint there?
It'll be east
from a
of us.
housing standpoint?
It'll happen in Louisa a lot faster than Greene.
We'll see. We will see. We may agree to disagree on that one there. So I'm going to say, Crozet,
I'm the
watch what's
witness.
happening in Charlottesville. You are the witness. You are the witness. Final word for Sena
Fight.
Magill, the potential Charlottesville City Council candidate. Welcome Laura Jackson to the program. Anywhere you want to go.
About Crozet?
No. I mean, maybe why folks should vote for you. How about why folks should vote for you?
Oh,
You got a lot of people watching.
Well, I believe people should vote for me in general because I really want to be a bridge builder. I admit that there's things I don't know, and I'm happy to learn about them. And I also know that you don't need to know everything. You need to be more of a generalist and to reach out to people who do know more things than you do about things, like Sean. Reach out to Sean about transit. Reach out to Peter about walkability and bike paths. Reach out, and again, that's the role of city council, is to appoint people to boards who you then listen to. I do love this city.
Yeah, you do. You love
I
the
don't
area.
want to leave. That's one of the reasons I'm not contemplating leaving. It's that I want to see this city really be a truly better city for everybody. And that's going to mean working with the surrounding counties. It's going to mean working with UVA. And I also feel that I can do that very well. I've got experience in those different areas. I've got experience living rurally. I've got experience living urbanly. I've got experience utilizing UVA. And understand that all of these are factors that we need to pull together and work with conjointly. Your tip of the tongue thing is like catching on over here.
I got nothing.
So, yeah, and I feel like I can bring something to the table that we need at this time.
Should be a good advocate, guys. A really good advocate for the city of Charlottesville. The more time I spend with you, the more I like you. I mean that sincerely. You're a very likable, genuine, and authentic person. Final word for Sean Tubbs, my friend.
It begins with a Z.
Here we go.
No.
Where would you like to go here? We have 3 Albemarle County supervisors watching right now.
Well, I was just going to say, again, I think you're correct.
Hello, Rick.
I think that whoever is elected, there is a system in place. It's a system that doesn't necessarily appear to work for everybody, but there are things that are always happening. A lot of times people always say things like, oh, they should do this or something. In a lot of cases, that's already happening. So for instance, you mentioned one thing we didn't talk about. I talked transit a lot. One thing that Jaunt is doing, they're launching a Crozet to Charlottesville commuter service.
I love it.
In August.
Yeah.
So again,
So
another
needed.
potential choice. And it could go... so if the idea that so one of the anchors, of course, for the lumberyard in that area is Perrone Robotics, which is
Self-driving vehicle.
self-driving vehicles, which
I
Jaunt is
saw it
also,
the other day.
which is also experimenting with something called Tony. I don't know what it stands for, which is there's a lot going on. There's a lot of innovation. The question is, how do you get those innovation, and how do you align people so that they're listening to each other? For me, I'm choosing to do it in part by taking the bus, by trying to increase it, by challenging in my own head. I should go back one thing on that, is that I had convinced in my head that it was, the bus system's impossible. It's impossible. I can't do this. Woe is me. And I realized I was the problem. I had to challenge my own sense of, do I really know this for sure? And that's something I think that we have a great opportunity in this community right now with a new city manager, with a new UVA president, with a relatively new county executive in Jeffrey Richardson. We have too many Richardsons. I think we're going to have a moratorium on Richardsons. Aaron, get out first.
All right, well, let's call the city manager T. Rich. Dr. T. Rich.
It's up to... We could do a poll.
No, that was a joke. We're
Richardson,
going to call him.
McRichardson
We're going to
face?
call him Dr. Richardson. He's the man. I'm looking forward to having him on the show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting him. I introduced myself recently, but I think though that Neil was dinging me in a private message here.
He's dinging you right now.
Yeah, well, he does that. We have a great relationship. He's a good friend of mine. But
Neil's the man.
the new slogan for the Free Enterprise Forum is, and he'll put it up there, is inspiring positive public policy. Positive, I think, is sort of a word that it sort of implies PR and cheeriness. But I think constructive. We can do this. We have to figure out ways to work together, and local government and our local governments talking, and our regional governments that most people don't know about. I will close by saying that next week, if you really are interested in transportation issues and converting to a new system, which might take a little while to get to an authority, that might be a goal. Next week, the Regional Transit Partnership meets on Thursday at 4 o'clock. I'll be happy to go through the agenda with anybody in advance just to sort of give people a little bit of a lesson. I'm here as a resource for the community.
Where do they meet?
Water Street Center at the TJPDC headquarters. But there's a whole lot of stuff out there. I'm no longer at Charlottesville Tomorrow, but I do help update CVillepedia, which I think is a resource that is worth looking at. If you checked your entry lately?
I can't wait for you to launch what you're going to launch, and you told me not to tease it.
There's nothing launching.
There's a ton of freaking people watching. This
nothing launching.
Okay. Deal says he's the content slinger. All right, I didn't let the
cat
out of the bag.
Yeah, the content slinger.
I didn't let the cat out of the bag, but watch out for what this guy has coming down the pipe.
We had a bet to see if you were going to do it.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't. I promised you.
60% was one.
So did you lose or win the bet?
I don't know.
Okay. I promised you I would not do it.
I neither win nor lose in life. I just simply am.
I'm going to close with this. You guys rock today. It's been a fun show. Very free-flowing. The show in totality will be archived on ilovecville.com. I took a behind-the-scenes tour today, guys, of the Kim's Market property on the corner of Ridge and Cherry in the entry to Fifeville. And I'm just going to put this out there. I would encourage the old Estes grocery store. The old Kim's Market grocery store. I would encourage, and I'm just going to leave it at this, I would encourage City Hall, and now we have planning commissioner watching. We have 3 folks who are, we have 1 city councilor watching. We have someone employed by the city that's asked me not to name them. I'm just going to say this. If the plans that are coming down the pipe that are going to be in front of you in August, be open-minded. This is an opportunity to really help solve the affordable housing issue that we have. Potentially 70 units in a neighborhood that needs affordable housing. Okay? Be open-minded. Let's not do the textbook quintessential bureaucratic roadblock, difficult to make anything happen in Charlottesville thing that we saw on West 2nd Street with Keith Woodard's project. Let's be open-minded to what's coming down the pipe in August, because I think it's going to be something that's being embraced by the community and something that potentially the potential city councilor sitting to my right, your left, can really help push through should she win a spot on council. I'm going to leave it at that. I know you have something to say, but this guy right here is asking us to end.
Due diligence.
He's got to edit this program. We got people watching outside the door right now.
Due diligence.
Keep an open mind.
Trust
firm believer.
We close the
on due
program
diligence.
by saying golden rule, golden rule, golden rule.
Wait, there's no rules.
Golden rule, do unto others as you want to be done unto you. Treat others with the respect that they deserve, guys. Richard, I will keep you posted on the Fifeville project. It will be incredible if it's there. It's the I Love CVille Show. We're back on the I Love CVille Network at 3 o'clock with the charity-focused show. Caring for Creatures is on the spotlight today on the I Love CVille Network. I'm Jerry Miller. Take care.
Thank you, Jerry. All right.
That's good.
Awesome.
I apologize for everything. How much would you accept to have it deleted for the record? I will give you $1,000 to delete that show.
Are we still live?
Delete it.
Last time
Delete it.
Michael's was still live going.
Mike is still live.
Yeah, I was like.
Everybody's watching.
That's fine.